Nation, welcome back. Episode 857 of Lucas, Tigers, and Bronze. Really awesome day yesterday for content. You had the Black Jaded Wolf Uncaged, the hobby through a dealer's perspective. People love that show. So that was yesterday at noon. You guys watched that. And then Cajun and I went back and forth on kind of what's happening in the NBA. Guys, we get tons of comments, tons of views now, record listens. Thank you all. I'm curious. I had a question for you guys. Maybe you'll leave it in the comments and you'll help out a fellow collector. How are you navigating this next 12 months, specifically this next 12 months of economic things with the hobby? So the question is, all of you guys that have been through recessions, depressions, corrections, whatever word you guys want to use it. How do you navigate this? You know, are you finding grails? Are you sitting on the sidelines watching? I'm curious because what's special about our community is a lot of you guys are significantly smarter than me. And maybe this is an opportunity for me to learn from you guys and your fellow collectors to learn. So without further ado, welcome back to another episode.
I like it. I brought my my ultra modern PC out, all the cards that I bought this year to show folks on YouTube. No,
that's a huge poop emoji.
It's a huge poop emoji. I don't know. My kids must have left it here. I saw it on the floor. I'm like, let me make. They won that for. They won it in like a claw machine or something like that, or something at a carnival. No, so lots of fun topics, man. I'll throw two out there for you, and then we can kind of take them. Obviously, we're recording this Thursday. By the time people are listening to this, it's probably the extended bidding's going on, or maybe some of the bidding has ended. But tonight there are 3 auctions. I mean, PWCC Premier is a monstrous auction. Some of the stuff that's going on at Premier, they're just crazy cards, 7-figure cards, and we also have Heritage that has their the Mantle 8, among other items ending tonight, and you said all liquid auctions ends on Thursdays also, so they have some stuff going on. Also, I could talk to you about a comparison that somebody made to me, which was just the glut. When the hobby has this, like the boom that we had, this cycle of success that we had, does it get to a point of too much, more than what we should be doing? And it was brought up in the context of card shows. That there's too many shows. There's too many shows overlapping. They vulture from one another, weekend to weekend, and you got Dallas going on at the same time as Boston, et cetera, and it makes it hard. Is it the same thing with auctions?
Let me touch on that, because the complete opposite argument was we made August 2020 when prices were going sky high, and the reason was because a lot of cards were tied up at grading companies, right? So there was too much demand for the supply, and it caused prices to go parabolic. So we're saying there's too much supply. What we're really saying is there's not enough dollars, active dollars in the system to buy up everything that's being auctioned off, and prices are falling. So there's never a right amount, right? Because you're saying, like someone else would say, there's too many shows. Well, if demand was 5x like it was in 2020, there might not be enough shows.
So is the demand 5x, or has the supply just increased? Right. So was there really more demand back then, or is the demand the same, or relatively constant, but we've now got, where we used to have a show a month, now we have 8 shows a month. Where we used to have, one big auction every 2 months, we now have 3 big auctions on the same night. You know what I mean? And 5 auctions in a week. Well, all auctioning off a lot of the same stuff.
Well, the first one with the show, it's hard to know what the demand for shows was because it was COVID. We weren't going for shows. My intuition says that there was way more demand back then than there is now. I would be willing to say there was 2x the demand. The demand actually halved.
Demand for shows you're talking about, not the demand for cards.
It's hard to know because we didn't go to shows because it was COVID. The demand for cards, I would say 2, maybe 2.5x what it was right now.
Really? You think we have 50% to... So what that means is we have 38 to 50% of the amount of people, participants in the hobby, or dollars in the hobby?
Dollars. Participants, I would say we have 25% of the participants that we had then now.
Wow. Really? You think so?
Yeah, for sure. Dude, there's
you think
so
that many people have left.
That many people came in.
Okay, so what you're saying is that we had a huge bump. It doubled, it tripled, and we've managed to retain a small percentage of that bump, but not all. Okay, all right, I get that.
In 2020, we probably went 3x in the span of 12 to 18 months. Mm-hmm. And I think if we look at it from how many people were in the hobby in 2018, we've probably doubled since 2018, but we've had since the peak of the whole mania. And well, you got to remember, Cage, I mean, there was no sports betting. So people who were traditionally used money for sports betting were buying cards.
Yep.
So there was people who got in because of Top Shot and started buying cards that would have never bought cards. There was people, I don't know the numbers. It would be fascinating to know this number. It's how many people bought their first card in 2020, 2021.
Top Shot's an interesting thing. I know people hate to talk about it, right? But it's a great microcosm of quote unquote collectibles, right? It doesn't have the history. People get mad at me for comparing cards to stocks. I'm sure they'd be even more mad comparing it to Top Shot. But think about it for a second, right? It started off as something where they didn't know what kind of demand they were going to have, so the supply was low. And then all of a sudden, the product reached a point where there was more demand than supply. And if you were in it early enough on, if you were there early and you were able to get what you'd call quote unquote quality pieces early on for a cheap enough price, once that influx of demand came in, right at the same time, basically the huge demand came in for cards, you saw a humongous, some might say unsustainable price increase for all of the items that had a small amount of supply and a large amount of demand. And then
we got a question January 1st. We bought in January 10th. A buddy of mine who saw a Forbes article February 10th or something like that, February 20th, texted me. He's like, hey, have you heard about this Top Shot thing? This is a buddy who would have never bought a card, never bought an NFT, never bought anything like this, was texting me asking me if he should get into it, just to give you guys
time. So then what happens, right, is the company that's part of this, and let's call Top Shot the company, and let's draw comparisons, right? There are people who were in the hobby in 2015, 2016, and before. I'm just going to use that before boom, right? And they were collectors, very few flippers, people who, believed in cards, loved the cards, the whole 9 yards. And they were in it before. And then COVID happened, whatever the reason is, and there's a boom, an explosion. And there's only so much supply of cards, of graded cards, of wax, of you name it.
Right.
And when that huge influx of supply hits, and there's so much more of demand hits, and there's so much more than supply, the price of the limited amount of supply goes up. And the people who were in it early enough were able to make a significant amount of money during that price discovery while supply and demand are not hitting one another, okay?
Again, I'll pause because Cage he's doing an amazing job, but I want to add a little context. There was a point in 2020 where people were like, what do we do with all these raw cards? Do you remember that? Yep. The raw card marketplace, i.e. Star Stock? Because all people wanted were graded cards. But here, what was interesting, if you got in at 2016, 17, 18, and you already had your cards graded and back, you were able to sell in that peak of demand.
So to compare,
but grading companies were not returning cards, so supply was basically capped. Continue.
And so comparing it to Top Shot, which is an interesting thing, right? There was only that Series 1, which was a limited supply of items. The real rare ones around a 25 out of 50. Nothing was more than, a couple of thousand for any item. And so people were coming in, and as they were coming in, the supply remained the same, just like the supply of vintage cards, the supply of graded cards was not increasing because grading companies were closed, the whole deal. And you had more and more people coming in, this influx of demand against a finite amount of supply, and it causes this kind of boom scenario. But then what happens? What happens is, let's use Top Shot as a start, and then we'll make our comparisons to the hobby. The company, and the company was Top Shot in there, but let's use as the company, let's call it Panini, Tops, let's call it breakers, let's call it distributors, let's call it all of the people who have control over the spigot of supply and the pricing of that supply. All of them see, Top Shot sees, while we have all of this demand, well, we got to turn on the supply faucets. And as most people, as most companies, as human nature, as company nature would be, it would be, we got to turn on that spigot and just open up the floodgates. because we have this immense amount of demand. And what winds up happening all too often is there's not a balance struck between supply and demand. Instead,
call it equilibrium.
Now there is a saturation point and then super saturation. And all of a sudden, all of this supply comes out, and the demand is no longer fighting over this limited supply. Now they're just awash with more supply. So not only are they able to now have more choices and buy from different selections of this stuff.
Cage's hand motions on YouTube are amazing, Luca Nation.
You got to watch, man. It's like, so I mean, I mean, you know, the whole, I mean, dude,
the supply burst
this
through
one,
the demand.
I mean, you can put this one down and have that if you want, right? I mean, you put this one down and have that if you want. I mean,
remember, read between the lines. Remember that?
I mean, you can have them all, man. But but the point is, not only is it tough to sustain the value of the new shit coming out, but some of that old stuff, now that people are like, well, I don't need to pay those crazy prices just to get in. I don't need to pay the crazy prices for this stuff. And what's amazing is if you use Top Shot as an example, and we can compare it, they just kept the machines on. Turn the machines back on. They just kept on printing, although it's digital, it's not printing. And all of a sudden, they went from a print run of 4,000 per player to 60,000 and multiples of the 60,000. And you're like, what the hell is this? How can something like this ever sustain? How can it ever have any value? And in the hobby, you had these companies, they turn the machines on, they're printing everything. Clearly Wipe My Ass and all the other products that were coming out, Chronicles. I mean, even I saw that crazy Blez. I never know which one of the Blezes. There's like a nice young Blez who, you know, he's for the hobby.
Don't get distracted by the Blezes. It's easy to get.
The other guy was like, oh, they put this noir into 1-in-1 because they were going to put it in Chronicles. The Chronicles is shit. Even a breaker is calling a product shit.
One thing that happened that Cage skipped over, but it's actually important, is when that Top Shot, and why we use Top Shot in this comparison is not to endorse Top Shot or anything. It's just a metaphor. It's like, what is it called? Social anthropology. Like you watch things play out. And what's cool about it is it's a faster loop. It's a faster cycle. Where something is like 2016 to 2022 is to see this all play out.
You want to know how a virus is?
Just slow down. He's so quick. In Top Shot, this
is why people say I should get a mute button for you, so you can let me finish my point.
What was so fascinating as all that played out was people would wait in the queue to get packs, right? Mm-hmm. Once they started releasing more and more packs, people would wait in queue. So the demand was there. But as soon as they got their pack, they would list the moments on the marketplace, and there was a run to the bottom. People would start undercutting each other with price. Do you remember that?
So this is the second part of the story. So this is not just supply and demand, right? So this is what kind of demand there is. And it's definitely part of it. I love that use Top Shot as like a microcosm, right? If you want a virus or a bacteria is going to impact, you know, a person, you don't unleash it on society. You put it in a petri dish and you look at how it's going to grow, how you can, you know, come up with a way to, you know, so this is a lab, right? It's a controlled thing. Top Shot is a nice, easy, controlled environment where we can just look back 2 years, boom, up, down, blah, blah, blah.
Quoted. And Top Shot is a virus.
Yeah, pretty much. Or at least it's the petri dish, maybe the hobby and collecting and all this. The gene we have is the virus, that we're all just basically gamblers of some sort. We're the virus. And we'll do it again when the pet rock comes back. But point being, right, is, you know, the hobby itself, right? I mean, you know, the missing piece is going to be people who want to own these things, right? I mean, Rob Veras talked about it, right? We talked about like these things need forever homes. So your second point of it is, I mean, before we get there, is in the hobby, not only did things get printed, but all of a sudden the grading companies started actually releasing all of this plastic into the world also. So we had the card companies thinking, oh, wow, we have all this demand. Let's increase supply. At the same time, supply basically came out of the woodwork for, you know, from the grading companies just dumping slabs on us like crazy. Even the fives, we were like happy to have something back, you know? And so you have all this crazy supply. And you're right. The next part is, how many people came into the hobby because it was a chase for money? Right? Because
how many of the new entrants?
If you're right about your numbers,
80%.
The new entrants.
80%.
So that is how you get where you have a third or 25% of the people who are left from that big boom, right? Same thing as Top Shot. Use that as a great example. And what you saw in that is that people were getting in, trying to buy, trying to break, trying to get packs, trying to buy things solely for. As soon as they got something, they listed it, and the next person would get it and sell it for $1 cheaper, and then it would be $1 cheaper and $1 cheaper, $1 cheaper, $1 cheaper. You went to Dallas. You want to talk for 30 seconds about how that might be a comparison?
That was actually one of our most listened to episodes. So I have a question for you. So if you guys are with us 15 minutes, I thought about this for a while today. And honestly, this was going to be my only topic. And I wanted to ask Cage, and I wanted to ask you guys this as well. So I thought about 4 kind of like if we were the Federal Reserve and 4 buttons that we could push to really have impact. So these are the 4 that I came up with. Maybe there's a 5th, 6th.
Nice. I want them. Levers. Let's go. Pull the lever.
So first, it's a buyback program by Panini and Topps where they buy back some of the commons. We could talk through the details, but it's a buyback program. $5 grading. Auction. So PSA, SGC, BGS. These are stimulus like this for the hobby. Things that will help the hobby. Okay. So you have the buyback program from Topps and Panini where they buy back commons. $5 grading from grading companies. Auction houses cut buyer's premium for a short period of time, or Topps and Panini fulfill every single redemption. 90%, 95%, most redemptions. Which of those 4 do you think would have the most impact on the hobby participants?
Okay, redemptions the least, because while obviously that is something that people are upset about, all it does is it releases more supply.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So it's more LaMelos, more whatever it is, you name it. And clearly we're losing people because they didn't fulfill my redemption. Customer service is terrible. There are lawsuits over it, but all that does is add more supply. The buyer's premium thing, I never understood why people had a problem with buyer's premium and the amount. People are willing. You have to look at it the other way. Don't look at it as far as like a seller or the auction house is taking. Think about it as from a buyer. Like a buyer's ready to pay X amount for a card. All right. If I'm going to pay $100 for a card, I'm not thinking to myself, I want to buy this on eBay because Rick Probstein's taking 10%, as opposed to I'm going to pay $100 on PWCC because they're taking 20%, or on Golden because they're taking 20%. I'm saying I'm going to pay $100, and I'm not factoring into the equation how much somebody is getting from an auction house perspective. It doesn't matter to me. So those 2, I'm going to kind of throw out the window. The $5 grading, I will go a different way. And let's make this an intellectual conversation. What I treat this as is I'm not comparing cards to the stock market, guys. But when there are stimuluses out there, and it's more than just a governmental stimulus, right? It's more than just, hey, cut a check and go ahead and spend it, right? Companies do things to bolster their products, to bolster their stock price, to make their stock in their company more valuable to the holders. And the 2 levers are, one, Andrew hit right on the head, and the second one he's very close to, but we'd have to rejigger it a little bit for the hobby. It's stock buybacks, right? Share buybacks and dividends. Okay, so share buybacks. I think it's something similar to what you're talking about, where the companies buy these items back, because what it does in the world of finance is the less stock that's out there, the less float there is, the less stock that's actually available, the more each share is worth. If the company owns it, it's no longer a traded stock, right? And if you're taking 10% of the available shares out there, to trade off the market and bringing them back into the company, you would think that the price of the shares that are out there would go up 10%. That's kind of the way that it works. It's quick math.
And it adds a bit of liquidity simultaneously.
Yeah. I mean, so I don't know the right way of doing that for the hobby. I think the easiest way is less product printing. You know what I mean? You're talking about like actually buying commons back. I don't know. I mean, that provides a little bit of a stimulus to the people who they're buying them from. I don't know how you make that happen. I'm sure there is a way. Something akin to like what Whatnot did with the 50 grand, and we talked about how I don't have an issue with it. I think the grading company example might be an interesting way of doing it, and maybe the grading company and the card companies get together and like partner up. Here, this is why people always say we should hire Luca, Tiger, LeBron as a consultant every time we have a business meeting with them. But what if Panini and Topps partnered up with a grading company? Like, what if Panini said, all right, we're going to partner up with Beckett. We're going to partner up with SGC. We're going to partner up with PSA. And if you buy this box from us, right? You're the end consumer of this box. Maybe Fanatics will do this with their own thing, but you're the end consumer of this box. Once you open the box, not for the breakers, not the silver pack flippers, not the people who are screwing over the end people, right? The end person, like a silver pack in the box. You have to actually open the box, right? In the box comes a card, a Willy Wonka golden ticket, let's call it, for one free grading for the person who opens that box from a grading company. Okay, and you partner with it, right? They work out the details of the whole deal on it, and then now someone who's opening a box of wax already has that one coupon for the grading. Well, maybe the coupon says, when you send this in with 5 grading cards, we'll give you the 6th one for free. That way, it still works out for the company. It's a nice little, bonus for buying boxes. The person who's the end user will now start grading their cards and get something. I mean, so I think there's definitely ways to do it that are like stimulus kind of ideas where the companies who are behind this can kind of work together and figure out a way to do it. I just don't know if there's an appetite out there for the companies who are doing this to do it, because they're all just making money hand over fist right now.
So I'll tell you, Luca Nation, I bring this up because, well, let me ask you a question. Cage, have you, since you started grading, since you were in the hobby, have you seen anybody offer 50 free or any large amount of submissions per month for free?
Just us.
Like, serious, genuine question.
Yeah, I mean, it's just us. No, just us.
600 grades times, let's call it $20. That's $12,000. 600 grades, 50 grades a month, 12 months is 600 grades total. Times, we're not even going to use the $30, right? That's $18K. It's called $12,000. That's a lot of money out of my pocket. That's 4 months of rent.
Yeah.
Has anyone done that? Any companies in your experience? So I think what I'm disenchanted about, and sometimes these companies are like, man, we have so much negativity in the hobby, right? And why does everyone come after us? Well, people come after you guys because with great power comes great responsibility. You are the companies that profited off of this gold rush. And now it's your opportunity to do something. And you're hoping that the people you pay very small amounts relative to do it on your behalf. So I'll tell you guys, be on the lookout. We are in an interesting stage with our podcast where we're going to sponsors and we're asking for a very large sum of money. And the reason we're doing that is we're saying we haven't seen anything from your guys. This is current sponsors, past sponsors, and future sponsors alike, to really do much for the people that really help you guys grow this industry. So if you want to work with us, you're no longer just paying for the talent. You're paying for much more so that we can now use those funds, those resources, those opportunities to benefit the community. And I'm very disappointed.
Listen, it's funny. You're passing it on. The companies have money. We'll actually do something good with it. So there you go. I like it. How much are we asking for? Are we asking for millions? A
lot of money, man. And we're going to shop around because someone's got to do something, right? And
sing it. I'm worth it.
Okay. I don't know. It's just something that I've been thinking a lot about, right? I think a lot about what it takes to build industries and, why companies run promotions and symbiotic relationships and ecosystems and all that stuff that be really hard to do on a full podcast in like an hour. But I think a lot about it. I think it's a valid point. There are a lot of companies out there. And listen, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they're just not, tooting their own horn. I mean, I know Panini tried to give out white sparkles, and that turned into an absolute unbridled disaster for them at National. Other than that, I mean, I'm trying to think of other Whatnot gave away a Lamborghini, right? I mean, does that count? Whatnot's not the establishment. We go after Whatnot, but we need to understand breakers are like a different silo from the hobby. Online marketplace, it's a new industry that's bolted onto the hobby, but the collectors are people who, buy cards that are typically graded or raw that they want to hold. There is the gambling. But I mean, just off the top of my head, there are a lot of little things, low-hanging fruit that, for example, the auction houses know who their biggest spenders are, right?
Yeah, of course.
And I'm not talking about one guy bought one card for a lot of money. It could be this guy bought 600 cards that are $50, right?
Yep.
Okay, we see this is how much we made off of him. Here's a reward to your account. No strings.
I love that. I just got an email. I shop at CVS a lot. It's where I buy the toilet paper and the paper towels for my family, makeup, the laundry detergent. It's an easy thing, couple blocks away from my house. Boom, I go in, I shop, I leave. I probably overpay. I'm not clipping coupons. I probably should. But you know what happens? Usually within 48 hours, I get an email, CVS, here's a $10 coupon. Here's 10% off your next trip. Here's, $25 in extra bucks or whatever the frig they call it. And I'll go back. And it brings me back. Even if my laundry detergent might be on sale at Walgreens this month, I got this $10 off coupon, or I got 25% off one item on my next visit that I could buy a stocking stuffer, for the holiday season. That's like a loyalty bonus, and it shouldn't surprise people coming from you who work in a cafe where repeat return business is a huge thing. The inventors of like the 5-hole punch and your 6th coffee or smoothie is free, the same type of thing. I wouldn't be shocked. An auction house should do that. Hey, if you've bid in 5 straight auctions, we're going to give you X for this many. If you've now won 5 items, we're giving you $100 or whatever the heck it is. I'm sure there's a way to do that. And put that money towards whatever the heck you're buying in the coming
grading companies and what are they called? The group subbers not know who their biggest customers are?
It's funny. Didn't Top Shot do that? I mean, just to bring it back to the beginning of the episode, didn't they figure out like how much the marketplace spend was of people and say, we're going to give you this money, you have to spend it in the marketplace, and probably churn it a couple times? Is it any different than when DraftKings and FanDuel were facing a lot of, competition from each other and from these folks now, trying to get in, Caesars and MGM and whatever it is? It's, don't they have all these deals where it's like a free roll or, bet on, who's the little guy, Kevin Hart? Oh, I like betting on the underdog. Oh, I bet on the overdog. That commercial, whatever the heck it is, right? Isn't it? Bet $5 and we'll give you 100. Bet $10, we'll give you 200. You got to keep betting it. You got to, play it a bunch of times. But
you see it a lot with new customers. I don't understand why not help repeat customers, people who've been waiting for redemptions for over a year. Filter that in an Excel spreadsheet and say, hey, I know you're waiting for the redemption. We don't have that. Your redemption's still in queue. We're going to focus on that. But here's a little care package that we put together for you. It's on us. Don't worry about it. It has nothing to do with your redemption. We're still going to fulfill that. But here's a little care package that we put together. We can't do any of this. So what happens is you wait for accounts like AIH or Sports Card Radio or Dan the Card Man or us or any other podcast or news station, whatever you want to call it, influencer, call you out. And then they come out and then they have to defend themselves as opposed to proactively do good for the hobby. It's such a weird space that I can't even fully understand. You have all the resources and opportunity to do good for the hobby, but you wait until there's malfeasance to be called out to come out and defend yourself.
I mean, I wouldn't call it malfeasance. I think a lot of these companies, what you're talking about is foreign to them. Some of them were publicly traded companies for a while, and they have a duty to shareholders to maximize profitability. And sometimes that is a short-term thing. Sometimes that is a quarter-to-quarter thing. And the expense of a gift basket that you're talking about will impact this quarter. I think what you're saying is that expense in this quarter might impact the bottom line negatively, but over the next 10 quarters in goodwill and customer retention, it's going to impact the bottom line favorably for many quarters to come. A lot of companies don't see things that way.
Let me even take away the personal benefit of it, because I do think that there's actually a tremendous amount of benefit to it. But even forgetting for a second the personal benefit, it's the right thing to do as a big business in the space. It's your responsibility, even if it doesn't benefit you, to do that. I mean, I still believe it does.
But you could make an argument, though, the business has a duty to just make as much money as it can. That's the business's duty. They don't have an ethical duty. Well, obviously they want to operate ethically, but they don't have any other duty beyond that to be a good citizen and give out gift baskets. You know what I mean? Like, you run the National, you throw a good show, and you're supposed to make as much money as you can, not provide continental breakfast. I'm sure there are people who would say, wow, look how awesome they were putting that continental breakfast. You would be one of them. You love yourself a continental breakfast, but the people who are investing in the national, if there's such a thing, I'm just using that. The people who, what they're supposed to be doing is making money. I think that's the point of being in business, unless you're a not-for-profit. Oftentimes they make the most.
I think it appears that way on the surface only when there's too many hands in the pie. Because I think if there's what you actually realize is those things grow the pie and incentivize people to stay longer and transact more. So they are actually things that benefit the business. I think when there's too many people pulling from the pie, it's just grab, and there's not much long-term thinking and long-term behavior.
Listen, I think, oh man, we sometimes miss the forest for the trees and things. We're asking a lot from a lot of these companies. Stop. We're not asking for a lot. Seriously, though, but just let me finish. Just like the supply, that wasn't enough for the demand kind of came out of nowhere. A lot of the companies in the hobby they did not have the infrastructure to do all of the things that the amount of demand that came in, was there for. And now they've built up like crazy to meet that demand at the same time that the demand, and as you're saying, the dollars have gone down. So I ask you, right? Let's just say a company you might happen to like went out and staffed up like crazy, and they hired people you like. Now it's filled with people you enjoy spending time with in the hobby, and they built up a sales team and all that other fun stuff, right? And the demand is not as much as it was a year ago. It's not as much as it was 2 years ago, but they've staffed up to meet that demand. That company now has a decision to make. Do they give buybacks so that you and other hobby participants are happy? Do they give a continental breakfast to appease Andrew? Or do they fire one of these people to pay for that? Do they keep their entire team?
This is some fucking bullshit. Stop. No, this is what they do. Stop acting like pleasing your customers comes at the expense of your employees. That's some bullshit.
But that's some
Gary Vaynerchuk.
Well, you have a different definition of pleasing your customers.
That's some Gary V stuff where he's like, I can only pay my people $15 an hour in New York. Yeah. That's not reality, dude.
But how is it not, right? I mean, you view these companies through the lens of 2020 demand and money, when at the same time you want to be treated as a 2022 customer who's, getting beaten down by the meritocracy that doesn't exist, right? How come you don't cut them some slack? How come you don't say, all right, these guys built up, they spent all this money, and the hobby hasn't done their end to keep the demand coming. The hobby hasn't done the same thing and keep the money flowing. You yourself started this off by saying there's 25% of the money in that there was two years ago. Do most of these companies look like they're spending 25% of the money? No. But you want them to spend more on making you feel good. We're
confusing two different sides or aspects of a business. HR operations hiring. I don't know why you hired those people, what the goal was, or any of that. I didn't hire those people. Time out. But marketing and hey, XYZ customers spent money with us, we want to reward them. That's marketing. That's sales. That's top of the line. So I don't think the money should come from employees and having to fire.
The money's the money, though. You know what I mean?
Like manage the money, and you hire too many people. That has nothing to do with me getting a reward.
Right. So then I leave it to you. You're in charge of the hobby company X. Is your plan now to come up with these levers, your buybacks or free grading or whatever it is, but to come up with that money, because the hobby is just not spending this money, to come up with that money, you're going to now fire somebody from your team?
No, Gage. I think what you're missing is that if every single company that we've just talked about mismanaged, overhired, and doesn't have the
Let's assume they all did.
Let's assume that they all did that. That's more of a testament to what those companies are truly about. They're not good businesses. They don't know how to manage their cash. I don't think I have to be the one that solves that decision for them.
I don't think that's the case. I think that right now they are right-sized. Right now they're not firing people. Although, let's acknowledge the part that maybe you're missing, which is, do you think that every large company that has announced job cuts in the last couple of weeks are run poorly, that you can run them better, from Disney to Meta to Twitter to all these companies?
You brought up job cuts. I didn't say anything about job cuts.
But
I talked about rewarding customers on the marketing and sales side.
That money has to come from somewhere, right?
That money has been what I'm talking about is rewarding customers that have directly spent money with your business.
So, but here's the thing, right?
Money.
So, yes,
you
but
use
that money
has to hire all these employees who don't.
And why? Because we can't speak out of our ass and our mouth at the same time. You can't say, "Oh, give me my content at the breakfast," and also grow the pie. Don't they realize we got too many hands in the pie? We need to grow the pie. How do you grow the pie?
Hiring employees is not a sign of growing the pie. Alt had, I think, like 30 employees.
How else are you supposed to grow it?
Time out. Alt had like 30 employees on their marketing team. I remember I sent you a screenshot at National, and I was like, dude, our content team with 2 people outproduces this content team of 20 people. And that's not a shot at Alt. More people doesn't mean more output. No, it's not a shot at them. It's a growing, right? Let me go. Jesus Christ. It's a startup that got a lot of money. And when startups get a lot of money, what they do is they hire a lot. I saw this at Jumio. We had an amazing team going. We did ID verification. We got Coinbase. We got all these crypto companies KYC'd so that they could verify customers using their camera phone. We had 4 salespeople doing that. That's it. 4 salespeople, lean and mean. Andreessen Horowitz came in, gave us like $100 million. You know what they did? They hired like 25 sales reps. So I seen it play out. More people is not more hobby growth.
So you would have taken the $100 million and bought croissants?
He's the worst, Luca Nation. I honestly can't believe you guys, first off, put up with it for 856 episodes. Second off, 69% of you guys agree with what he says, and only 31% are on my side.
I'm just trying to give the counterpoint, right? And it's not the sides, man. There's so much to this that there are sides that you're saying that make sense. There are sides that not. I just try to put myself into the shoes of a company that is listening to this, and I know, bottom line, what they would say. They'd say, "Hey, Andrew, you want to come take a look at my books? We thought."
I would not say that. I would say, AIH, let's go take a look at their books. We'd march in there. And
why you gotta bring AIH? I mean, if think about this for a second. If all of the hanky panky went away, so would AIH.
AIH is an accountant. That's why I bring an AIH, not because he's a hanky panky king.
So think about this, right? So what I'm trying to tell you is that these companies are also in a spot where they're trying to figure out the supply demand. And maybe they haven't done a good job of it. We go back to Top Shot. They clearly didn't, right? But do you want the whole thing to go away? Like, do you want these companies now to disappear, right? Do you want the companies to no longer be there to support the hobby, to have this ecosystem? But that's kind of where we started, right?
So to run an auction house, you need the tech.
No, here we go. Andrew's going to tell you guys how to run an auction house. Go.
What do you need to run an auction house? You need the technology. So that's very important. That's number 1, technology. And 2, business relationships. People who are willing to trust you with their cards, right? Okay. You don't need to scale infinite salespeople to scale your auction house. What does it take to run Topps or Panini? They don't even manufacture their own cards, dude. They outsource the manufacturing. They're just so
they just like push a button and say, okay, outsource. Boom, outsource. That doesn't take anybody, any people, and the business relationships. That happens.
So to scale a restaurant, you typically need more waiters. You need more people. It's a labor-intensive business. A grading company, you need more people because people are grading those cards. You research auction houses and manufacturing companies, Topps, Panini, who manufacture cards. That's not. I need more people to make more cards. It's not
an auction house that auctioned off 10,000 cards in a year goes to 100,000 cards being auctioned off in a year. Do you think that it's the same amount of people?
No, you need more people, but I'm not saying it's in a linear way, the same way you need more graders to do it. You might need 1 or 2 more people to house that, to be able to scale with.
Really?
Yeah, for sure.
2 more people? Do you know what it takes to come up with a description that's well done? And write all those things, and I mean, PwC
you really want to
videos
talk about descriptions to cards? Do you really need? Does a card really need a description?
Of course, it does.
Here, this is a card. Here is what it's rated.
No. All right, well, I mean, listen.
Can we stop?
What's funny is
we're idiots.
It's good that you say this, right? Because it's important for the hobby to hear this, right? you came in a couple years ago. Like when I was buying cards many, many years ago, that book that comes in the mail and you read it and it gives me information. It tells me the story about why I might want to buy this item and what the historical significance of it is. Now it's just, this is a card, buy it or don't.
No,
Which I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. It's
well, no, the heritage. If you want to invest in marketing, I understand marketing is super important.
Here is the new breed, guys. They don't actually need a book or a description. It's here's the card. Buy it or don't buy it. So maybe auction houses don't need that much. Maybe they don't need people to describe what they're selling in any way. I don't know.
Dude, you're so weird. For a grading company to scale, every grader could grade 100 cards. So if we want to go from 100 to 1,000, we need 10 more graders. It's a linear process, okay, unless we introduce tech. For an auction house or a manufacturing company, it's not like someone is holding every single card as like, this is auction off. It takes the same amount of people to auction off one card as it takes to auction off 100 cards.
How can you say that? That's dead wrong.
It's not. You scan the card in, you list it, and it hits auction.
Right. So the same person's able to scan in 10 times as many cards and catalog 10 times as many cards and
not linear.
Index each one.
It's a non-linear.
2 more people, 4 more people. No.
Correct.
So basically, anyone who works in an auction house is not their full capacity. They could do more work. You're calling them lazy.
Dude, it's just like specialization. Like it doesn't, like Henry Ford. It's the whole same shit, but with grading.
Oh, an assembly line. I gotcha. I understand. Okay. All right. So listen, guys, you heard it here first. You guys, you should all just give Andrew a stimulus package. This is what it comes down to. If you're a hobby business, you have wasted your money on things like employees, on things like building up your team, when you should just be giving Andrew free money. Is that fair?
If this is the level of sophistication of our hobby, I don't know how it survives.
I mean, the hobby will survive. No matter what you and I talk about here, the hobby has survived for decades and it will survive for decades more. Without things like stimulus, without things like levers being pulled, it may not exist in a way that the folks who want to make money in it, it may not exist that way. It may not exist the way the flippers want it to flip. It may not exist in a way where, you could buy something and have it be worth more money this month, this season, or even this year, or even the next 5 years. But the hobby has survived through long periods of time where that was the case. Things were flat. Things were slightly up. And I mean, even things that I saw a Warhol just sold this week, right? It was something that sold for like $600,000 20 years ago or 30 years ago. It's over millions of dollars, $50 million or whatever it is. And everyone's like, wow, look at this. Imagine spending $600,000 and it being worth like this many millions of dollars now. The annual averaged out compound annual return on it was like 14%, which I remember being in this hobby and talking to many, I'm going to call them Vites, many people who came in following the Gary V mug life flip it mentality, who were like, this card's not worth my time if I can't 2x it by the next month. If I can't 5x something, it's not worth my time. Meanwhile, we're holding out these other asset classes, these huge Warhols, these pieces that made 14% year over year for somebody as like a monstrous, amazing investment. Cards can be that. The thing is, cards have always been that. That's not what a lot of people who came into cards in the last year want cards to be. They think cards are going to be something that are this business where everybody is in it to make money. But what business in the world does everybody make money? Doesn't exist. And what alternate asset class is one where you can put your money in and you can go and yell at auction houses and other businesses that are out there, and art galleries and whatnot, and say, you guys are not doing enough for the little guy. What you need to do, you need to give back. This art gallery, I know we got a couple billionaires over here looking at Warhols, but where's the goddamn croissants? Andrew wants a continental breakfast.
Are you finished? So I could clarify my point. Lawyers suck, dude. They'll take your point, they'll spin it, and they'll tornado wash it. They are money launderers with words.
It's like White Goodman. It's a hurricane.
All I'm saying is, hey, you've come to my Warhol exhibit for the last 3 years, and you've come 4 times a year. I'd love to do something really, really cool for you guys. So for the 50 of you that come every year that have been a part of this, we're doing a special kind of meet and greet with Andy Warhol himself. And everything. Do you want me to do one for cards?
No, I love that. It's a great idea.
Yeah, but the issue and the challenge with that is you have Bleecker who wants to do stuff like that, but they're always strapped for cash, right? So they have to go out and fund and organize the event. That's extremely tiring. Whereas, wait a second, there's all of these companies that have benefited from it. Provide the capital, we'll organize it. But what happens is they don't provide the capital to any of the businesses. They hoard, they hire employees acting like that's a good thing instead of giving back to the consumers and the small businesses that have supported them. That's my initial point.
I love what you're saying. It's now explained. And let me give my counterpoint to it. And it's this. For every Andrew out there that thinks that is the way to grow the hobby, that is the way for a company to give back, there's 5 other Andrews out there that think there's a different way of doing it. And I think the companies that have been here long enough realize that there is no way to please the immaturity that's out there and the new people who came in the hobby.
Let's have some fun with that. So for every Andrew that thinks that's the right way, there's 5 other Andrews who thinks there's a different way.
Correct.
Try a different way. Well, I'm not seeing any other different way.
Well, then you're wrong, but you're not looking because you just don't see it your way. Sure. So I'll give you many examples, and they're all met with a horrible response from the community themselves. So let's start. Sure. So to grow the hobby, right? We need more eyeballs on it.
I didn't say to grow the hobby. This is not a grow the hobby topic. This is how the businesses that have profited are going to give back to their best consumers.
Okay, so Whatnot gives $50,000 to the people who sell the most on their platform. And what happens? People go crazy about it and say, look at what they did. The influencers got 50 grand. What's going on? I suck. Whatnot sucks.
Whatnot hasn't benefited off the hobby. The hobby benefits off Whatnot. Whatnot doesn't make any money. Whatnot raised a ton of funding.
I'm sure Whatnot makes plenty of money.
Whatnot makes no money, dude.
How?
Just stay with me. Whatnot raised
all I'm asking. I am staying with you. How do they make no money? Don't they take a percentage of everything? Forget about raising. Don't they take a piece of every sale that's on their platform? So how are they not making money?
Spend some time on their platform.
No, you tell me.
They have revenue. They have revenue. They're not making money.
Why?
Because they're investing basically every dollar into marketing. I can't hear you.
So now if they go out there and they give out continental breakfasts and more money, they have to fire people because they didn't spend their money the right way.
Whatnot isn't a hobby. Like, okay, so you went Whatnot strategically, but Whatnot was clearly not actually some of the businesses that were the legacy businesses that have benefited from the hobby.
So now it's a legacy business.
Well, yeah, the businesses that are around in 2016. Whatnot is a brand new company that started like 2 years ago, raised a ton of capital. And yes, they take 5-10% from the sales, but there's a ton of expenses that the business still has. And there's no way that we could say that Whatnot is a profitable business. They have a lot of money. A profitable business, is Collectors Universe, is SGC, is BGS, is Topps, is Panini, is Golden, is PWCC. Those are profitable businesses.
Okay. So why I say for every Andrew, there's 5 other Andrews out there who would say it's a better way of doing it. You now want a very specific legacy business that also it's revenue actually going back to their biggest customers, which, okay, I mean,
rewards to their biggest customers. What's so confusing about that?
So
not even business customers, just rewards to their customers.
So that's what you would say is the best thing to do for the hobby. I think most people, the other 5 Andrews out there, would have a different way of doing it. And they'd say what they need to do is they need to grow the hobby. What makes us all money rather than just putting $5 in Andrew's pocket or whatever it is, the way to grow the hobby is to get more eyeballs on it, to make more hobby participants, because then you have more demand. And forget about the levers of stimuluses that never work and they're only temporary anyway. The way to fix this is to put more eyeballs on it, to get more people involved, to get more money into the hobby, right? Rather than less. So Ken Golden has Drake doing box breaks and everybody goes nuts about how it's a fake and it's not real. Even no one has done anything else to bring millions of eyeballs on an account to the hobby itself. that's mainstream. He brings Lala Anthony on, and she opens up a box and gets a cool one of one. And instead of everybody talking about, wow, look what he's doing, he's got this celebrity on there. Instead, the hobby reacts and says, holy shit, that box was rigged. He put a one of one in there so that everybody could have this content that's bullshit, right? So if I'm those legacy companies, I turn around and say, Andrew, great idea. But here's the problem. The hobby are babies. And no matter what we try, the hobby is going to tell us we did it wrong.
We're not
and
fooled.
Even if we do what you –
we're not
you are a fool. You are a fool.
No, we're just not fooled. We're not fooled that thinking that Lala getting a one of one in a pack is going to benefit me as a customer of Golden.
Wouldn't it?
Why would it?
Because it brings more money, more eyeballs. It grows the space.
Hardly.
I mean, you say hardly because you think croissants do it. But that's the point. You're not in charge. The people who are in charge, they do try things to grow the hobby pie. You just don't like the way they do it. I just gave you examples.
Giving back to the consumers of the hobby is not having Lala on a live stream.
Whatnot bought a friggin' Lamborghini. I mean, they've like this whole huge like these are all and
the fact that you're struggling to find ways that PWCC and Golden Tops and
struggling. I just rattled off a ton of them.
Any of the grading companies, it took us to do something revolutionary to give free grading to the hobby. That was so revolutionary.
No. Listen, here's the fun, right? These companies, first of all, they owe you nothing. Right? They owe you nothing.
They owe us anything, dude.
They owe you nothing. They owe you nothing.
I didn't say
and second of all, you're asking for freebies now from companies that are probably hurting more than you are.
So thank you all for listening to another episode of Lucas, Tigers, and Bronzo My. I wanted to tell you about a new service that we have starting as of today, and I'm really, really excited to bring it to you guys. So as a part of our partnership with SGC, we got 50 free submissions every single month, and many of you have taken advantage of that. And it's amazing that we could have the opportunity to 650 episodes, 675 episodes in, to go ahead and give back to our community. As people were sending those cards in, they asked, can we send 5, 10, 20 more cards to you guys? We'll pay for it, but we wanted them graded with SGC. You guys know SGC is turning cards around in 13 to 14 business days, have incredible customer service, and their secondary market values are going up day after day after day. And that's exciting for the hobby and exciting for the grading landscape. So we didn't want to just rush into it. We wanted to do it right. And what we did was I relocated here to Boca Raton, Florida. I opened up a P.O. box maybe 5 minutes away from SGC, and I will be hand delivering and hand picking up the cards. So you don't have to worry about anyone else touching your cards. It will be me, and I will update you every step of the way. So here's how it's going to work. I'm going to personally pick up the cards from a P.O. box, prep them, new card saver, new penny sleeve, and deliver them to SGC every single Tuesday. Why Tuesday? Well, it lets the stragglers over the weekend come back through on Monday and gives me a day to prep, and it basically gives SGC the entire week to work on grading those cards. Once your cards pop, only then at the end of the process will you be paying for the service. It's $25 per card, simple as that, and the turnaround times have never been faster. We're hearing right now 13, 14, less than 20 business days. So there it is. 9170 Glades Road, number 135 is the P.O. Box in Boca Raton, Florida, 33434. 9170 Glades Road, number 135, Boca Raton, Florida, 33434. Of course, you could shoot me an email or shoot me a text anytime, and I'm always available. Many of you already have my email. It's iamandrewgoldberg@gmail.com. or my cell phone number, 215-519-9154. Reach out with any questions. I could walk you through the process. I've hopped on the call with quite a few of you, and I'm happy to do that. Love you, Luca Nation.